Welcome to the World United. Yay. Welcome to the World United.
Welcome to this Meet the Master series from the World Parliament on Spirituality. Today, on the 25th of July 2020, we have the pleasure of having with us Star Johnsen, who is one of the great spiritual masters. And we look forward to having this session with her and understanding more about her work, the kind of messages that she spreads, and the kind of joy that she spreads around the world. Star, please give us a brief introduction about yourself to get kick-started.
Thank you. Well, it is just such an honor to be here and to be able to share with my brothers and sisters of the light.
Welcome. So
Thank you.
Primarily, why don't you just start with your childhood and where did your initiation into all these activities that you currently do started, and what was the turning point?
Okay, it's a long story. I was born in Toronto, Canada, and my first teacher was my grandfather, and he was a student of Paramhansa Yogananda. And so very early on, I was introduced to Eastern mysticism, which really was an incredible start to my life. He was also a Rosicrucian. And he taught me about the Rosicrucians are a mystery school. Mystery school with mastery of the inner planes. And my grandfather would tell me wonderful things. I was just a little tiny girl and I sat at his feet. And he told me that we're not alone in the universe, that our Father's house has many mansions. He told me about the extraterrestrials, the Space Brothers. He told me about the Rosicrucian mystery schools on the inner planes. And he filled my young mind with so much wonder that essentially he gave me permission to explore those realms myself, within myself.
Okay.
He introduced me to my own multidimensionality. And you know, what a gift to start off in life, you know. So my whole childhood, I was really a very free young spirit. I never slept at night. I just consciously left my body and explored all the various dimensions freely. And it was so free. I felt so free. It was like going up in an elevator and I could choose what floor I wanted to get off on, you know, and spend the night in. And some dimensions was going up, some dimensions going down inside the earth, and meeting with the crystal kingdom. But when I was 17, I had kind of a turning point in that I had inner ear surgery. And after the surgery, it was like that closed for me. And it was the most frightening experience because I felt like this side of the veil felt like death and that side of the veil felt like life, right? Freedom. Spiritual freedom. And I was so afraid. And by then there was nobody that I could talk to. My grandfather had already passed away and we had left Canada. We were in California. And but the gift of that closing was that it led me on the spiritual path to be able to try to find out how to open it up again. So even that was a very great gift. And so that started me on the path of seeking, right? And I looked into the paths that were available to us back then. Yeah. One of them, of course, we were all influenced by the Beatles, and we were influenced then into transcendental meditation with the Maharishi. And so that was certainly one of my first connections. I also looked into the way of Zen Buddhism, Nichiren Shoshin Buddhism from Japan. Then I looked back into Eastern mysticism, and I was initiated by Charan Singh, who taught Surat Shabad Yoga, the yoga of the sound current. And I followed those meditations for many, many years. And it had been learning a discipline of the mind, teachings about the sound current, and coordinating the sound and the light. And of course, those were really invaluable teachings. And so from there, I was working as a graphic artist first, before I got into all the healing work. And as a matter of fact, I was working in Hollywood at Universal Studios, and I was an art director. And I was doing record album covers and billboards and building public images for the recording artists. And, but I got disillusioned because all of these people with whom I was working closely, who had supposedly made it according to what our culture puts on pedestals, were not happy people. They were neurotic, couldn't be happy with what they had attained. They were just afraid that somebody else was going to come along and knock them off their pedestal. And I got very disillusioned. And at the height of my art career, I dropped out. I left that life. I went into a spiritual community. And it was a community where we did extensive practice of Kundalini yoga and meditation and ate raw foods. And I wanted to learn how to live a spiritual way of life. It wasn't enough to just do practices, right? And then continue on with mundane life. I needed to know how to integrate spiritual practice into my whole life. That's what I was missing. That's what I was looking for. And while I was in that community, and we were doing so many hours of extensive yogic disciplines, it was when I really connected with the light. The light came to me, the light raised my Kundalini, the light, we were all receiving spiritual gifts through the light. And for me, that gift came through doing healing work. And it started off very, very simple. Somebody could have a pain in their body, and I would call forth the light and do laying on of hands, and the pain would leave. It was just very simple channeling. But then, of course, then after I left the spiritual community, because it was time to leave, I had an incredible thirst to understand and know more and more and more, all about the light. And of course, it's led me on some really incredible paths in my life ever since then. So after I left the spiritual community, I went and I lived in the mountains in Northern California, up near Mount Shasta. And I lived for 7 years, living off the land with no electricity, growing our own food, extensive hours of spiritual practice. Kind of felt like a yogi up in the mountains, connecting with the light and sending light out through the universe. And I was beginning to develop clients too, people who would come for healing. And another thing that happened for me that was very amazing when I was living in that way is I had various interactions with other people from other dimensions. I met several races of star people while I was there. I met we call them the blondes. One day, I'll share a little experience with you. I was in the woods in Mount Shasta, and I was pregnant with my daughter. And I woke up in the middle of the night as like all of a sudden I was just wide awake and super conscious. And an emerald green light came into the room. And it was the middle of the night. I was super conscious and just, wow, what is this? And this light came and enveloped me and took me inside the mountain, Mount Shasta. And it was like an airport, but with no United Airlines, you know. And there were these beautiful, very perfect looking, very tall beings who were very, very white, almost silvery white, had jumpsuits on. It was like I was on one level and they were a little bit above me, and I was only allowed to observe. But I observed that they were coming and going from different places, that they had different vibrations, and it was incredible. You know, it was an incredible experience. And then I met with another group who I call the little deer people. And these people looked a lot like, if you've seen the movie E.T., the little guy in there. And I was in Sedona at the time, and I was suddenly taken up. And I experienced so much love from these beings, these little deer people. Their eyes were filled with love. They communicated through telepathy. They moved with the fluidity of the sound current. It was like they were part of the sound current, right? And I never experienced so much love in my whole life. And I just didn't want to come back. You know, it was incredible. And then during that time, I also met another group that were robotic in nature. It was like a silvery pink light, and I was lifted into a small craft that was silvery pink light, and one being was at my head and one being was at my feet, and they were sending alternating current through my body. And I wasn't afraid because I felt like they were under the direction of a higher intelligence, and it felt very good. It felt like I was being cleared and balanced. So those were some of my early experiences. Then while I was living in the mountains, I was also learning about making my own plant medicines. And I was making flower essences and gem elixirs, and allowing the plants to reveal their medicinal gifts to me. And I made my own medicines. Okay, then a turning point came, and a very wonderful Filipino healer came into my life. He was a psychic surgeon from the Philippines. And he was a very mystical man. His name was Brother Angel Domingo. And I ended up working with him, doing healing work for about 5 years. And we traveled all over the United States. Brother Angel taught me about Philippine mysticism. about sacred mountains and going into sacred places and sacred holy books that were inside mountains and mantras and working with spirit guides and extracting dense energies and many, many things. It was quite amazing. During the course of time when we were working together, I saw blind people's vision restored. I saw crippled people walk. I saw people with cancer get well. Many, many miraculous, wonderful things. And this was a very great teaching for me, you know, to allow other aspects of myself to work through me. And after Brother Angel passed away, he was teaching me from the other side. And also an incredible experience that I just totally let go of my ego to be able to allow this to happen and allow myself to develop into more of a channel. Now, while I was working with Brother Angel, we were working in Houston one day. We were doing healing work, and some people came into the room with a giant crystal skull, hoping that Brother Angel might have some clues or knowledge or understanding about crystal skulls. Well, he really didn't. But what happened to me, it was like, what is this? You know, it's like this is my long lost friend. This was Max the crystal skull, which is an ancient crystal skull that has become very well known internationally. That we were kind of the first ones that the skull was introduced to when his caretakers took him out of the closet. And I was cradling him, holding him like a baby. It was an incredible reunion. It's like, and why am I feeling this way? It's not even pretty, you know, but I recognize this. I recognize this being. I recognize this energy. And Max continued to come in and out of my life over the next couple years at pivotal times when I needed that energy to be there. And in the course of my relationship with Max, I started speaking in strange languages, the star languages. And that experience was also requiring a lot of getting the mind out of the way and just allowing spirit to sing and speak through me, and learned about the power of, it's like mantric languages, and watching the energies respond to these languages that were coming through. They were like commands to get in place, realign, reconnect, you know. And then my guidance told me that Max the crystal skull would understand that language and would respond to the language. And there were a lot of talk sounds, talk, in that language. And so I went to Houston following my guidance, and a friend of mine in Houston had begun speaking the same languages that I was speaking, like 3 days before I got there. So we were both speaking the same languages. And so we went and presented ourselves in front of Max the crystal skull. And we began allowing the languages to come through. And we were working with the energy fields of the skull as if we were working with human energy fields. And we were intoning and intoning and intoning. And all of a sudden, all these little wheels of energy started activating inside the crystal skull, just at a tremendous quickening. And all of a sudden, this being of light came flying out of the skull and presented itself in front of us. There aren't words. There aren't words. It was the being came out with so much force that my friend was thrown across the room, and I was literally I couldn't move. I was just, what have we done? What is this? And I felt like there was so much energy that was going through my body. I thought I was going to burst into flames. It was kind of frightening. I mean, I'd never experienced any energy like that. It was so quickened. And then the energy grounded through my body like lightning. And the language just kept coming and coming. And the being identified itself as talk. And I'm wondering, well, what is talk? What is talk? Well, a book that I had been studying for a few years, The Keys of Enoch by J.J. Hurtak. I found everything about talk in there. That talk means Orion in the Tibetan language. And so that was a big clue that this being, talk, was from the consciousness of Orion. And so I ended up working with the caretakers of the skull and the skull. I ended up working for about 2.5 or 3 years, working with Max the Crystal Skull. And we traveled all over the United States had activation ceremonies with different groups of light workers. And depending upon the openness of the group would be the extent that talk would emerge from the skull. If people were scared and skeptical, then a little bit, came. There were some instances where the people were so open and so into it, and everybody was speaking the same language at the same time. That talk emerged, and he took us into the deepest levels of spiritual union, sacred union. So blissful. He took us into the oneness. He took us home. He took us home. But I was so overwhelmed that wanting to understand, well, what kind of a civilization could have an artifact like that, And he had belonged to the Mayans. He had belonged to the Mayan elders in Guatemala. And so this led me to seek the wisdom of the Maya. I had to understand that this group, this cosmology, must be such an evolved, advanced cosmology to have an artifact like that. And that began my journeys into the Mayan world. And
so, if somebody hears your story, Star, without knowing your background, they would think, based on your experience in Hollywood as a graphic designer, you're making up all these stories. First, you spoke about the mountains and all those stuff. That is like you were in Area 57. And then you see these skulls. Amazing stories.
My life has been amazing because I've had to put myself through experiences. I can't just learn things, mentally or from somebody else. I have to live them.
Right.
I have to live them in order to understand them. And I'm very anchored and grounded into my own reality.
So your experience has been like what Dr. Yugandhar says, the masters seek the students. So in your quest for knowledge, and as you started accumulating them, you were reached out by various individuals or probably connected with all these different kind of people, and that began your journey.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. Of course, it's an ongoing journey,
Right.
And I'm still here in the lands of the Maya. that I've been with some, I had worked for 13 years with Mayan elder Hunbat's men, and went into other dimensions with him and with groups. We had groups. I was facilitating with him at pyramids sites for 13 years. We worked together. He has passed on now. But we worked with the sacred sites that they're not just piles of stone, they're mystery schools. And the masters of light are at these sacred sites waiting for us to be able to connect with them. And when we can allow ourselves to completely open in such a place and allow the light to go deeply into our bones, right? Our bones are the stones of our body, and penetrate. And so we can go into the cosmic memory together and go into just amazing, amazing levels of joy, amazing levels of oneness. And it's also very grounded because we are activating and integrating the tree of life inside. The tree of life is a sacred symbol that every spiritual group on this planet has a tree of life that is there as a symbol, right? Even look at Christianity, the cross, it's the tree of life. I've learned that. And on my path, I don't look at differences in a believer in oneness. As a believer in oneness, I've spent my life looking for the similarities in all the paths and realizing there's really only one path. There is one oneness, right? And the tree of life is the sacred symbol that unites everything, that unites the worlds above our head with the worlds under our feet. And then when we initiate that tree of life inside of us, and the nadis are our branches, and we learn how to work with our whole energy system, which is what I've been teaching for most of my life, right? Then when we get together collectively, then there's a much bigger tree of life from our collective consciousness that emerges. And the Mayan people call it the Wakachan, which is the world tree. That's the world tree. And when we gather together in ceremony and we bring in the world tree, then that takes us into the unified field, the collective consciousness. But then we can take that even further into the galactic tree. And that's how we climb. That's how we ascend.
So when you meet these people from various planes or various levels of consciousness, were you always not afraid, or were there instances where you were terrified in meeting these new spirits or souls, or the people?
No, never afraid. I will say there was one group that I met in Sedona that was a group that was just on a slightly different level of awareness than we are. And I call them the thought control people.
Okay.
Very scary. And I see dictatorships, fascists, all those who are into thought control working with that lower astral group. And very scary because they try to, through force, try to, get your energy.
How about the people from the other extra, you were taken in a spaceship and all those encounters and experiences? How did you feel when you met those kind of beings or intellects?
Not afraid at all, not afraid. incredible love, like incredible love.
And did you know from which
and oneness.
galaxy or which, I mean, for less ignorant people like us, so what would you define them, or did you have more information around it?
Well, in understanding through the Mayan cosmology that our spiritual path is to ultimately merge into the great central sun. And that we go through one sun to another sun into, through these various stargates until we make it to the great central sun.
Okay.
And Orion is one such stargate that for me, I've had to pass through, and the crystal skull took me through that stargate, which the consciousness of Orion, it's like a total unity consciousness.
Okay.
Total unity consciousness. And until we can integrate unity consciousness, we can't go any further. We go through these stargates and different experiences and become one with it, right? Integrate it into our system. And then we go farther, then we go into the next and the next and the next and the next.
Okay. Could you also talk about more about this Rosicrucians, or how do you pronounce it? And
well, that was his spiritual path, the Rosicrucians.
Okay, Rosicrucians. Okay.
The Rosicrucians, which frankly, I never went very far into that. I just listened to my grandfather.
Okay.
I didn't feel attracted myself to pursue that path. But he told me that the Rosicrucian mystics, it's a mystery school. Okay. And it's kind of Christian based, the Brotherhood of the Rosy Cross. But it's mystical Christianity. And they have mystery schools on the inner planes where they impart mystical knowledge.
Okay.
And I did experience one of those mystery schools, and it was beautiful. It was like higher mind type teachings.
Okay.
But for me, my path in this life has been learning to see through my feelings. My process has not been filtering everything through my intellect, but has been through putting myself through all of these various experiences to open my feelings and to perceive through my feelings and see through my feelings. That's my path.
Okay.
Or that's what I came in to learn, to develop in this life. And that's what I can offer to other people through my own connections.
As you were going through this path, did you feel that there were other guardian angels who were helping you through this journey, or did you make more friends with guardian angels in the process?
Yes, at different periods of time. There was a time when I was consciously working with the archangels. Yes. Okay. I experienced so many different ways of working. Went through that dimension, went through the crystal kingdom teachers, the teachers inside the earth, so many different teachers, but it's all part of ourself. There is no other.
Okay.
The way I see it is that there's nothing out there that is not a part of ourselves.
Sure.
And when we put ourselves to these experiences, we are meeting other parts of ourselves that want to integrate into us. And it's like we're not going, it's not to beam me up, get me out of here, Scotty, right? But it is to embody everything, all the wonderfulness and multidimensionality of who we are into this body and anchored into the heart of the earth so that we can manifest here and now on this planet what we came here to do.
Sure. Could you
Not
talk-
to fly out somewhere. And I think that's why, for me, early on, it had to close for a while,
Okay.
so that I could come into this dimension.
Sure. So could you talk to us a little bit more about the crystal skulls that you're working on? Are these skulls existent from before? Are they man-made, which draw energy, or more information about these crystal skulls, if you may?
Well, there are hundreds of crystal skulls all over the world. I was very blessed to be one of the first to really start working with a crystal skull. It was in 1987, which was the year of the harmonic convergence. Pardon?
Just a quick question. So are these crystal skulls human-made on Earth, or have they manifested from other planes or other portions?
We don't know. We don't know. There's so many different theories. It's very hard because they can't really carbon date the crystal.
Wow.
You know, there have been many studies trying to determine, well, how were they carved? How were they made? There are some that they said that with our technology today, we wouldn't be able to carve them, that the crystal would fracture, that it would burst apart. So it's really unknown, but there are so-called ancient skulls. There are old skulls. There are newly carved skulls. But the point about using a crystalline template, this is a little skull that I have here, is the Creator gave humanity, our skull is shaped a certain way, right? It's like a template. It's a sacred geometry. And our skull gathers the energy and organizes it in such a way that gives us the awareness that we have as a species, as humans. It's a template, right? And to me, that's the really important thing about it. You know, you look at a horse, he has a different shaped skull. He has a different template. So he has a different consciousness than we have. And it's not to say that one consciousness is higher or lower than the other. It's different. And even if you start studying a skull, and the skull of, say, a pure Asian person is shaped a little differently than the skull of a pure African person, or a pure white person, right? Or a pure brown-skinned person, red-skinned person. And these little differences in the template, in the sacred geometry, gives each of the root races a slightly different understanding of reality, a slightly different consciousness. But it takes all of them together and the understanding of all of them to make a complete whole. No one has the whole picture. We need all of them. And that's why the indigenous people work in ceremonies, call in the 4 directions, you know, want to bring all of the 4 directions or the root races together into the one light. And so the crystal skull, if you, we'll talk about quartz, okay, quartz has certain properties. I mean, the computers all run off quartz. Right? You know, quartz, the first radios were quartz crystals and copper wires. Quartz receives information, stores information, and transmits information. So when we carve the quartz into our own sacred template, this becomes a very useful tool to enable us to perceive more of who we are. It's like a radio, phone home.
So
And I've worked with a couple of ancient crystals, so-called ancient crystal skulls. We don't know, okay? But through their experience of how they've been used, if they've been used in many, many ceremonies, such as Max was used in many, many ceremonies, that crystal is storing the energy of all those ceremonies and all those connections that the elders made during the ceremonies. And when I went to India for the first time, and I have my own big crystal skull, Shamuku now. She's in the United States right now. She needs to hold the space of light there right now. But I took Shamuku and my other crystal tools to India. And I had been working with them with the Mayans for many years. And I was giving a workshop in India with all my crystal skulls with this wonderful group of people who had been meditating for, countless years. And they could perceive all the energy that we had been working with in the Mayan, at the sacred sites in the Maya, and saw like the vision serpent and the geometries. And then we came into an understanding about the Naga and the Naga Maya and the snake people and the solar priests who brought the wisdom from Atlantis into our cultures through the Naga. And the Maya talk about the Naga Maya, and you talk about the Naga in India. And it's the same people, and it's the wisdom of the serpent.
okay, so these skulls, do the ones with quartz has the same power compared to if they're made with selenium or rose quartz or any of the other stones?
Just different qualities.
Okay.
All the mineral kingdom, they all have slightly different frequencies and attune us in different ways. Our crown chakra, it's a big radio. It's a big receiver of all these colored cosmic rays. And so the gemstones can help us to attune to the qualities of different rays.
Right. So is Max still with you?
Is Max with me?
Yeah.
Did you say?
Yeah.
Not physically, but he'll always
the skull Max that you were in Houston. You mentioned you had Max.
That was Max. That I don't own Max. I worked with Max.
Oh, you worked.
And Max gave me these wonderful initiations.
Got it.
Right. But I have my own large crystal skulls. I have one Shamuku that is from Brazil. And I wish I had her with me right now to show you, but like I said, I needed to leave her in the United States.
Sure.
And I have one that's also from Tibet that I work with. Okay. And then I have stargates that I work with and create these wonderful crystalline fields in which we work and do healing work and ceremonies and activations and like that.
I have a question. Like, since you were in Hollywood, do you relate to the crystal skulls of Indiana Jones and Harrison Ford?
I thought that was pretty cool. Some of it, I mean, there was some truth that was being given there. About setting up the skulls in a template of 12, just like the crown chakra, and the 13th in the middle. They were imparting some spiritual truths in the movie. Okay. I enjoyed it,
Yeah, we always we keep doing repeat sessions, so it's good. So, Star, you also mentioned about the Tak. Is the Tak related to Mayans, or are they both?
I'm sorry.
You had mentioned Tak.
Tak.
Tak. How do you spell it?
TAK.
Yeah, that's how.
Talk.
Yeah, I got it. So,
Yes.
is that related to what Mayans do, or are they different? Because somewhere when you
What
were
is this?
speaking, I
What
tried.
is this similar? What is similar? Yeah, is that so? Talk means Orion in the Tibetan language. Okay, and from what I understand, some of the pyramids in the Mayan worlds are aligned. They're aligned with different star systems, and to channel the energies of those star systems through their sacred geometry into the planet. And certainly, many of them are aligned with Orion. And in the work that I was doing with Hunbat's men, I was working with Tak, Orion. He was working with Orion also, and we were reestablishing the House of Orion at each of the sites that we went to and did ceremony at. Opened up those connections into the earth, right? Brought it, the above into the below into the above.
Okay. So, if you were to, from all the experience that you have gathered over all these years, if you had to pass on a message to the whole world as to what they can follow or what they should be doing, what would those messages be?
To follow the light.
Okay.
And there is a time when we need external teachers, when we need to develop discipline, when we need to learn different things from different teachers. But once you receive the initiation of the light inside of us, then the light will show us everything. And when we can develop our focus on the light and go deeply into the light will reveal everything to us, everything we need to know, everything we need to see.
And
it's all inside of.
And how does one know that they have seen the light or at least seen a glimpse of it to follow that path? I mean, how would I know that, okay, now I need to follow this light? I got my calling. How can I figure that out? As an example.
It's by going deeply into it, allowing yourself to become immersed in it. It may start off as a little spark, but to focus on it, meditate on it, allow it to integrate into your life, and it will reveal everything. But we have to trust ourselves. We're so used to giving away our power to somebody else, I got to tell you one really interesting experience I had in India.
Sure.
Because you see, we have a divine female inside of us, and we also have a divine male. It's our receiving aspect and it's our expressing aspect. The divine female part of us, or this side of our brain, knows how to allow, and that's our intuition, and that opens up our ability to receive and allow. The other side of the brain, the male aspect, is the expressive side, the outflow, and we have to bring those together. So a lot of my work has been to help people get connected with the divine female, because it's very difficult for people to just allow and receive. People don't feel worthy to receive. And so I was working with a guru who came to me while I was in India for a session. And he had a lot of disciples, and I had already shared, some of them. And we had lovely experiences because they had developed so much focus, and could focus on the work that was coming through. So this beautiful, all this divine female energy started coming through for this guru. And he was going into areas of consciousness that he'd never experienced before, But it was really interesting to me because he was wow, but he said, but how can I hold it? But how can I how can I, in a way, how can I own it so I can give it, right? And I'm saying, but it's not about owning. It's about allowing and just opening and allowing it to come through, you know? And he walked out of the room just going, allowing, you know, it was a whole different understanding for him.
Oh, beautiful words. Owning versus allowing.
Allowing, yes.
Yeah. Allowing only.
When we can open ourselves to allow enough, we can allow the entire universe to come through us.
Yep.
And get our egos out of the way, you know? And, you know, it's a process of unpeeling and as we allow more and more light, and then the ego falls away, you know, more and more.
So, Star, you've been at multiple places which are powerhouses of energy. Like North Carolina is one such place. You've been at Sedona. What is your connection to these places? Were you called to those places? Did you, or how did you happen to be in those places? And what is why are only some places having more energy and frequency than others?
Well, as always, I just follow my guidance as to where I need to go, you know? And some places are more meaningful to people than other places, you know? I mean, we're in this pile of this DNA. We're in this DNA. We came into this DNA, and so this DNA is full of memory, the memories of our ancestors. And it's like there's little pieces of us that are all over the place, all over the planet, through this memory, right, through our ancestors. And so I felt like going to these different places where I've been guided, it's been like reclaiming a piece of myself that was there. Memory. It is awakening our cosmic memory. And of course, you look at the planet, you know, they're like chakras on the planet. The elders who built the sacred sites built them to align with certain planetary energies. They're like chakras. They're like light reception areas, places where the energy comes in, places where the energy goes out, you know? And there's countless chakras, but it's like more important ones, more powerful ones, you know, like we have major chakras, we have solar chakras in our body. We have lunar chakras in our body. We have stars. The universe is inside of us, and we are inside of the universe. And the planet is a living being, and she has chakras, you know, and some are more important or major portals of energy than others are.
This is actually amazing information, because till so far I was thinking only the soul and the body has its chakras, but the planet and including the DNA you mentioned, that's the reason we are attracted to some places. Interesting.
Yeah, it's like when I first came to Mexico, okay? When I was guided to come to Mexico, and it was like, and Guatemala, and it was like suddenly I was looking out of the eyes of my ancestors. And I found out later, several years later, that my great-great-great-grandmother was from Mexico.
Oh, okay.
I never knew that before. I never knew that. But when I came, it was like I had come home. It's like I've been looking for this place all my life, you know?
So in your whole family, are you the one who's like the more spiritually exposed and with all this information, or did you see resemblances within your other poor people in the family too? Like you did mention
my
about
children.
Father. Okay.
My children are absolutely amazing. And my son, my middle son is a doctor. And when he first got accepted for going to medical school, he graduated from Yale. He wanted to go to India. He wanted to go to India to an ashram to prepare himself on all levels to be able to handle medical school.
Nice.
And my grandchildren, I mean, one of my granddaughters is already very interested in all this, and what is her nana doing, you know, what is and wants to understand these things. Yeah, it's going through the family.
Sure.
And I taught all my children, I taught them to offer their hands in healing, you know, and my children were exposed to many wonderful things. In their growing up years, I had Native Americans come and conduct ceremonies and sweat lodges and fire walks and, you know, many experiences for them. So, yeah, they've been prepared early on.
Nice. So now that we are planning to have this world, or not planning, we've already had it a couple of times, with the World Parliament on Spirituality. If we had to unite the whole world spiritually, how do you think we can achieve it, and so that everybody feels the same urge and feels the same connect?
One of the visions that Mayan elder Hunbat's men had, which I think is a very incredible insight, is he talked about people all over the world coming together at sacred sites on the solstices and the equinoxes at the same time. And doing ceremony, calling in the light. And that this would stimulate the planet, you know, like you could say, like acupuncture, right? That we would be stimulating all of her chakras all over the world at the same time, infusing the light in, you know, with all the people, the rainbow people, all the people, you know. What an incredible vision. What an incredible vision. And I still believe in that vision from what I've experienced. And when the harmonic convergence happened, I was in that, you know, I was in Texas in that. And we were at a sacred site called Enchanted Rock. And there were hundreds of people there. And during the harmonic convergence, there were hundreds and thousands of people gathering at sacred sites all over the planet and sending a wave of light over the planet. And it initiated a huge consciousness shift. We still need to do that, you know, more and more and more. And if there's anything that I can do to help facilitate that, you know, this would be just my deepest joy and song in my heart. I really believe in that.
So that's like at the start of the meeting, like we discussed, this is a trailer to the big movie that is coming out in between October to December of 2020, the World Parliament on Spirituality. And this has been an amazing discussion. So I'll now leave the floor open, and I invite Dr. Yugandhar also to join and get his thoughts and your perspective. Link the two of you. Dr. Yugandhar?
Love it. Yes. To get our perspective?
Yeah, Dr. Yugandhar also, you both have spoken to each other before, but again, in this forum, I would want you guys to connect again. So that
I want to. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I'm very excited about this Congress. You know, any gathering that is devoted to world enlightenment, you know, and oneness, you know, I totally support with my whole being.
Dr. Yugandhar, any questions from your side? Any thoughts? You're on mute, by the way.
I don't. Pardon me?
No, Dr. Yugandhar is on mute, so just letting him know that in case he's speaking.
Yeah. Hi, Star Johnson.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello. How lovely to see you.
Yeah. Amazing, amazing. Very,
I
very
love
happy to
what
see you
you're
here.
doing. I'm really happy to see you, and I was sorry I couldn't see you in 2012 when I was in
Yes,
India.
yes. I tried
I
my
wanted
best to
very
invite
much
you.
to come, but it wasn't possible. You know, I had so many,
Yeah,
compromises.
yeah. In 2012, had you been to Chichen Itza ceremony?
I'm sorry, have I what?
In 2012, December 3rd week, had you been to have you been to Chichen Itza?
Have I been to Chichen Itza?
Itza ceremony?
Many times.
2012,
Many times.
2012.
Many, many times.
No,
Incredible.
no,
Incredible.
2012.
Huh? When the light comes down and comes down the snake, down the stairs and anchors into the earth, you know, the kundalini of the sun meets the kundalini of the earth, and the whole thing takes off.
Yeah,
Yes, yes, absolutely.
yeah, wonderful, wonderful. I was also a Mexican in one of my past lives.
Yes.
So I lived in Chichen Itza area. I have a very, very powerful experiences since my childhood. It was a recurring series of experiences from the age of 12. I was meditating around Lake Titicaca, moved from Andes to the northern Yucatan, the Chichen Itza area. So it was a very recurring experience. I was aware of these words like Chichen Itza, Lake Titicaca, and Cascos. These words I was very much aware. You know, there was a story when the Miami beaches of Florida was full of crystal stones. A lot of crystals were found in Miami beaches. So when I was studying, when I was only 12-year old, suddenly I got into a trance and I conceived my past life experiences in Peru, around Titicaca and Chichen Itza areas.
Me too. I was at Lake Titicaca and
Yeah.
on the floating islands of Uros.
Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful.
Yes,
Nice journey.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And Machu Picchu.
yeah. Over to Ram.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. I
Thanks,
went,
Dr.
what I feel is I feel the Tibetan lamas high in the Himalayas, and they are channeling this cosmic energy into the planet through Stargate Orion. And that energy is sweeping around the planet, and then it is anchoring into the heart of the earth in Peru, in the Andes. I
see.
feel this incredible connection between the Himalayas and the Andes.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Yugandhar.
Yeah.
Star,
That was great.
thank you very much. I mean, even this 1 hour is not enough. I am sure we'll have many more sessions. And we look forward.
Thank you so much. This has been so much fun to be able to share with you guys.
And like I said, this was a trailer even for us to get to know more about you and your experiences during the World Parliament on Spirituality. And look forward to interacting more with you.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And anything I can do to help, promote everything, I'm putting the word out through some of my friends,
Thank you very much for your time. Have a good rest
Okay,
of the day.
thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you, Star. Bye-bye.
Look forward to seeing you again.
Yep. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.